I have my classes of interest already in my planner. So these are all the classes I'm considering. So from here, we're going to, try to figure out what sections work best with our schedule for pre-registration. So one way we can move to the schedule view within my planner is by clicking this little calendar icon. Or we could also click on the left-hand side here, schedule winter 2023. So I'm going to head over there. This is one way where you can have like a little bit more of a visual representation of the classes. I'm a visual person, so I like that. But one thing to notice on here too is that we are going to be coming back for winter quarter on a Tuesday, which is the 3rd. So it can be a little bit tricky with classes that are on Monday. So skipping to the 9th through the 13th will help us see, and I'll come back to that in just a second. But to start the process for finding the best sections of the courses that work together, we can use this feature called auto-generate schedule. So if there was a certain class or a certain section that I wanted to lock in, I could do that here. But I don't have anything at the moment, so I'll just hit next. This is a nice filter that you can put on. So if you are a morning person and you want to try to find a schedule that's just in the mornings, or if you'd rather have fewer classes per day or fewer days with classes, these are all filters that you can use to auto-generate the most preferred schedule. But I'm open to whatever, so I'm going to leave it for any time. So we'll go ahead and generate. And it's going to process. My planner likes to be so sometimes. But once that loads, we'll see a colorful calendar when it goes to the right thing. There we go. So this is what I'm talking about with Monday not being there. You can see like it's blacked out. It's because we don't have class that day. But if you go to the next week, we can see there's some stuff that was hiding. So for me as a student, as an example, I'm an econ student, 3rd year. So my top priorities are going to be business 205 because I need a business class, and this one sounds cool to me. I'm also going to need an econ elective. So econ 123 sounds interesting. And then I'm also needing a civ. So I think ancient empire sounds really cool. And then my 4th class preferred would be this disability and design class because that just sounds really interesting to me. So those are the top 4 that I'm hoping to get for winter quarter. So what I'm going to do here is I see business 205. There are actually 2 different sections. So when you highlight over the sections, we can kind of see, okay, both of those actually work for my schedule. So in order to increase my chances to get in, I'm actually going to add it again. So I can bid on both sections. And this is a place where you can also add classes as the planner. So down here is just add courses. If there's anything you realize later on that you want to add. So I'm going to click the other section, and now I will be able to bid on both. And so that's my top priority. And then my other priority was econ 123. So I am going to look at that one, and we can see here that there's only one lecture section. So it's only offered Monday, Wednesday, 1:30 to 2:50, but there are lots of different discussion sections. So it looks like there's 6. And when you hover over them, you can see like what time they would be at. So there is some conflict with the disability and design class that I'm interested in, but I can see that some of them aren't at that time. So I would have some options that could work with my schedule. We can see here that the discussion section is ineligible for pre-registration. And that is because you cannot bid on a discussion section or a lab section. You will be only bidding on the lecture, and you will be automatically assigned to a lab or discussion section with the possibility to switch during the add drop period. So we'll see that a little bit more in a few minutes, but that I would just be bidding on the one lecture section for econ 123. So it doesn't really matter which discussion section is highlighted, but it helps me plan and see, okay, it fits. So my other top priorities are disability design and ancient empires. both of which only have one section. So those are relatively straightforward. I'm just going to bid on those two and hopefully get in. So now we can go to the cart and rank some of these. So we have this button right here that will take us to submit the courses for pre-reg. And this is going to take us to our cart. So the first thing I want to highlight in the cart is that you cannot submit an empty cart. The system will not let you. So if you don't need to pre-register, you will just not participate at all. If you enter anywhere from 1 to 10 bids, then you will need to save and submit every time that you make changes. So my top pick is going to be Business 205 at 9:30. I really want this one, so it's my #1 pick. And yes, so my second pick is going to be Econ 123. And I also really want this one, and there's only one section, but we can see here that this is that discussion section, and I cannot drag it in because I won't be bidding on it. It's just for planning purposes. So I'll be randomly assigned if I'm able to get into the class. And then my third spot is going to go for Civ, Ancient Empires 3, because this is a popular course and I could place it higher, but my top priorities are for other classes, and I'm okay with a backup for Civ or a random one through add drop if needed. So it's not as high of a priority for me. Then my fourth spot is going to be for business, the 8 a.m. section. So, oops, make sure it goes where you want it. But this is just in case I can't get into the 9:30 section. So I assume that most people probably want a later start time. So section 2 might be more popular, even though I'm a third-year student in this example and I have a higher priority than second years for this course. It is popular and will probably get filled. So I want to increase my odds of getting in by having a backup or by adding both sections to my bids. So my fifth spot will be for my fun class, Disability and Design. I'm just really interested in that. So, but I could always find another fourth class if I'm not able to get into it. So it's not as high. And so these are my top choices. I could just leave only these in my cart and be done. But what if I don't get into these courses? You know, then I may end up with 0 enrollments and have to get into 3 or 4 classes during add drop. So now that I have my top choices, I am going to save and submit. Every time changes are made, you need to do this. And this is basically a receipt. And they also send me a confirmation email. So this shows that I submitted my 5 bids, and now I can go back. So I want to go back and add some backups. You know, by having backups, this gives me a better chance of resolving into at least some classes. So I want to do that just to potentially not have to do as much during add drop. So we can see that some of our planned courses now show pre-registered. So this is how we know that we've actually pre-registered, and we can see this is my #1, this is my #4. So we can build from there. One course I'm also considering for winter is Econ 107, which we highlighted earlier. And when you open it up, you can see that Enforceable pre-req right there. So another place that you can see it is the course search, which we saw. This helps me know which course has a hard pre-req that would prevent me from getting into the course. So if I haven't taken Econ 100 or 200, then I won't be able to get into Econ 107. And we can also see that it's Econ 107 and this multilingualism class is offered at the same time next quarter on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I could bid on both, but I obviously would not be resolved into both, because if I got into Econ 107, then I would have a time conflict. So you are still able to bid on classes if there's a time conflict, but you won't be resolved into 2 at the same time, obviously. And it's just another factor that you have to consider when making your bids. So the other time conflict is Econ 123 and CRES 16102. And CRES is a civ option that I would be happy with if Ancient Empires becomes full, so I could put that as a backup just in case I don't get into Econ or Ancient Empires. Another backup I have is Schooling and Identity, And then my final backup is going to be this colonizations 1 class. So now we're ready to go back to the cart, and we can either click that here, or we could also go to the planner and we can see that same pre-register button now. So we could click this instead of going to the schedule view. And what we will do is, so I can see all of this stuff. We see the enforceable pre-req for business. There's the enforceable pre-req for Econ 107. So I could, even if I haven't taken Econ 100, I could still bid on it, but obviously I haven't taken it. So if I don't have those prereqs, the system's going to know. The system checks for those enforceable prereqs, and that's basically a wasted bid for me if I haven't taken those prereqs. So make sure you're reading that, because you will never be placed into a course if you don't have the prereq. So let's say even if you have instructor consent that allows you to skip the prereq, sometimes there's arrangements made where you can possibly skip a prereq, but the system is not going to know that. So you still do not want to bid on that class. That's something that you would handle during ad drop with an instructor consent form or the request button on my classes. So just keep that in mind. And then we have, so I will just add the ones that I'm interested in. This is a backup. We've got this one as a backup, and colonizations. So depending on, where you want it, you can just move them around, make sure it's in the order that looks good to you. And then, like I said, we're not going to bid on the labs or the discussion section. So those are just going to stay there. We can see here too, like the priorities. So for Civ, since it's a core class, second and first years have priority, but for major based or general electives, fourth years, then third years, so forth, have priority. And that is pretty much everything, I think. So those are my top. I could add 2 more, since I have these on my schedule, I could just throw these down below. Doesn't really want to scroll with me. Yes. There. So we have 10 spots. I'm going to go ahead and save. And then we get, that same thing. So I will be, checking my email to make sure that I get a confirmation email. If I don't see that, then, I might want to go back in just to make sure everything looks good. But that's pre-reg. So that's the final step. You do have until Friday at 5 p.m. to get those in, and you can always go back and make changes.